Welcome to the Guilbault Girls Show, where you will have the opportunity to hear from mothers, fathers, siblings, and individuals themselves about their journey of living with a disability. I know, it's called Guilbault Girls, but we have a bonus for you as we get the Guilbault boys to interview some of the dads and siblings to get their perspectives too. We'll also have special guests from time to time to share the many resources that are available to those living with a disability and their families. So get ready to laugh, smile, cry, maybe even get a little angry when you hear some of those stories of their day-to-day struggles. But let's not forget their many triumphs. As they say, it takes a village, and if it weren't for our village, we wouldn't be where we are today. So join us. Hello, and welcome back not only to another episode of the Guilbault Girls Show, but the start of season 3. I can't believe that it's been 2 seasons, 2 full years, and I'm kicking off this year with my friend Lauren Neubauer on self-care, which is so important. So, as you all know, I am your host, Karen Guilbault, and today's guest is Lauren Neubauer. Lauren is a mom and board-certified behavior analyst who has 15 plus years of professional experience in human services. She has passion for expanding her knowledge personally and professionally, and she's proud to say that she is one of the few BCBAs who has supported people through the lifespan. Most recently, she's been using her education and experience to spread the use of positive behavior supports through the workplace, community, and home. She is a member of the Association of Positive Behavior Supports in Home and Community Positive Behavior Support Committees. Say that 3 times. So welcome, Lauren. I'm so excited to have you on, kick off this new year. It's definitely an important topic, which is self-care and mental well-being. I have known Lauren for several years from when I used to work at the ARC Northern Chesapeake region. And then I also want to note that we are going to have a follow-up episode where we're actually going to dive deeper into the positive behavior support. So make sure you tune in for that. So we always hear that example of being on an airplane and oxygen mask descends in front of you. What do? As we all know, the first rule is to put on that oxygen mask, your own oxygen mask, before you assist anyone else. Only when we first help ourselves can we effectively help others. Caring for yourself is one of the most important and one of the most often forgotten things that we do as caregivers. So true. When your needs are taken care of, the person that you care for will benefit too. So I read an article that states, regardless of age, sex, and race and ethnicity, caregivers report problems attending to their own health and well-being while managing caregiving responsibilities. They report sleep deprivation, poor eating habits, check, failure to exercise. I did just join the Arena Club. Failure to stay in bed when ill. That is a huge one, especially when you're the primary caregiver, and especially if you're a single parent. You know, you have no help. And if you don't have family around, we used to have my mom here all the time. We don't have her anymore. So it's just Jesse and I, but thank God I have Jesse. We postpone, postponement or failure to make medical appointments for themselves. I can say for me, for the most part, I'm good with my physicals, my mammograms. I go for my blood work and stuff. I am past due for my colonoscopy. I need to get that done. Yeah, I know. So family caregivers are also at increased risk for depression and excessive use of alcohol. I can state I will never become an alcoholic because I have bladder issues. And it's so funny because I got the nickname Tinkles. I've always had issues since I was like, growing up. They even left me in my 8th grade thing, a roll of toilet paper. Yes, because I pee all the time, and they call me Tinkles, and they take bets on how many times I'm going to go. So to me, I would rather not drink. I would rather sleep. So I go out often to have a good time and drink, but it's not that often. So anyway, tobacco. Haven't smoked in years and years and years, and other drugs, never got into that. So caregiving can be an emotional roller coaster. On one hand, caring for your family member demonstrates love and commitment and can be a very rewarding personal experience. On the other hand, exhaustion, worry, inadequate resources. I can say I will never have inadequate resources. I never did because of the ARC. That is the one thing you have to get plugged in with support, people. So you need to reach out to the ARC Northern Chesapeake region, Family Support Services. They will help you out. And then continuous care demands they're enormously stressful. Caregivers are more likely to have chronic illness than are non-caregivers, namely high cholesterol, check, high blood pressure, check, and a tendency to be overweight. Yeah, I am. According to it, I am obese, actually. So studies show that an estimated 46% to 59% of caregivers are clinically depressed. So I can say I'm not depressed. When I was on bed rest for Faith in the hospital for 42 days, they said I had what they call depression, situational depression, and they put me on Zoloft. And I'll never forget, my mom worked in the mental health field, and she was always, you don't need to be on stuff and da 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 da. And I tried 2 times to get off, but I was a mess. And I find that, it's not the depression, it's the anxiety, because then that's when I sit down, and when I get quiet, then that's when the anxiety sets in, because then I start thinking of, okay, who's going to take care of her when I'm gone? What's going to happen? Can she do this? Can she do that? And then that's when everything sets in. And I think that's also why I'm always engaged in so much and keep myself so busy. But it's also like some of the stuff I do, like this podcast is really, it's therapy for me and helping other people out. So how about you? When it comes to self-care and mental health, from where you stand personally or professionally, why are you so passionate about mental well-being?
Yeah. So I think personally, on the personal front, I come from a family who hereditarily has what, growing up was called mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not just one generation, but generation after generation, as you know, and a wide spectrum too. So substance abuse, OCD, anxiety, depression,
Mm-hmm.
um, and not always necessarily situational, but being predisposed to those things. I knew from a young age I was going to really have to focus on something. And it wasn't until like now, as an adult, when I'm introspective, looking inside, that I knew I wanted to avoid mental illness, meaning that I have to invest in my mental wellness.
Yes.
And so even as far as like really going back to grad school and getting a graduate degree so that I could become a behavior analyst was part of that journey. And it is ongoing. My knowledge is always ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's because I find learning new things makes me feel better.
Yeah.
I'm someone like, we'll drive past something on the turnpike to go visit my family, and I'll be like, hey, somebody Google why the bridge goes underwater, or whatever. How did they build those bridges under the water?
Uh-huh.
So, because in that moment, my mind is like, hey, I'm curious about that. And I know, finding out why something works the way it does will make me feel good.
Mm-hmm. It makes sense. It does.
Yeah.
So, can you share your thoughts on why caregivers of children with developmental disabilities have more stress than other caregivers, and tell us about the barriers to their dealing with that stress?
Yes, I can. So I definitely want to widen it though.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I want to make sure that we are including people, not just children, with
Mm-hmm.
developmental disabilities, because this is for many parents of people with developmental disabilities. This is not something that ends in childhood. Caring for someone with a developmental disability for some of us will be lifelong. And it might get passed on to one of their siblings or another family member. So it's really important for me. And part of the reason that the stress is so much higher is because being a parent and all of that caregiving doesn't stop at 18. And so that's definitely reason number one, is just the length of time.
And I think most people don't realize how much we do behind the scenes, or they don't, unless you walk it, you truly don't, walk it
Right.
and work it unless you truly know.
Right. I agree. I think another reason why caregivers have a lot of stress especially when you are, again, caring for someone with developmental disabilities, is isolation slash lack of connection. And so, Karen, you had already said, like, you had resources, you had connection at the ARC, but that's not everybody.
Right. There's so many that don't. I just met a person at church yesterday, and it it was great because we got to connect, and I gave her my number, and her son kind of presents like CP, just got accepted into the Maryland School for the Blind, and he's 8. So I'm like, like, you know what I mean? So it's like every time I get a chance, I'm like, all right, I got so many resources in my head from everything that I collected over the years. It's like, I just want to pass it on.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
she just is, there's so many people that are lost. They don't know, but it's because I lived it and I worked in the field and I help.
Well, and it goes back to, like, I always think of, like, even parenting my own child, like, it takes a village,
Mm-hmm.
but not everybody has a village. For
Exactly.
example, my family's not from Maryland. I live in Maryland. My daughter's father and his family are here, but even within that, our village was small.
Oh,
Let alone thinking of, the families that I've supported over the years who just don't have that. They don't even have a partner or a spouse that was willing to stick around and do this thing called caregiving. Um, I've supported a lot of families, even thinking of that isolation of they're afraid to go out in the community because, number one, if they can get through the safety concerns, assuming like their child doesn't have, elopement behavior or aggression or self-injury, if they can overcome those things, but now you have to worry about the public perception. A lot of the people that I've supported over the years have some autism spectrum differences. And so they don't always have that physical disability that is observable. And so again, you have those eyes. It feels like there's a million eyes on you. And so that leads to, like, you know what? It's not even worth me going out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
But we know that going out, even just outside for a walk in the sun, improves our mental wellness.
Mm-hmm.
And then going back to the lack of connection, something else that leads to isolation is that having a relationship and maintaining it and making sure it's healthy takes time and effort. I don't even know how to explain the time and effort a healthy relationship takes when you have a neurotypical child and you're trying to get together with so and so, or oh, I have a text message I haven't responded to in 2 weeks. Then add on the extra caretaking and the extra stress of, hey, no, my child, maybe it's medically, it's a medical complexity, or maybe it's behavioral, or anything. All of that on top of, especially if you're a working parent, or maybe you're not because you're at home all day, because that is your full-time job, is taking care of this person. Because of those reasons, it is really hard to maintain those friendships and relationships. Again, a lot of the people I've supported over the years come from a single parent household because, again, caring for people with developmental disabilities takes a toll on relationships. And sometimes it's easier to either just co-parent, or I've even supported someone whose parents stayed together, but they lived in different homes because it was too much stress. Being up 24/7 and, someone having to go to work, and it was just a lot.
Yeah. I met another lady who his daughter is older, and she's nonverbal and has cerebral palsy, and it turns out that they're divorced, and he used to take her. Well, now he has terminal cancer, so now she's the primary. She doesn't get that break. And I find too that even though they may have like some services, they don't know all the other services that are out there that comes along with it that they could be utilizing.
Yeah.
Which is another huge thing. But, and that's a perfect example because now she's primary, she had that help and she had those few days, when she would go to the dads. And then now it's like, it's all on her and she doesn't have anybody. So
Right.
you hear those stories and it's yeah.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts and knowledge on how self-care impacts our mental wellness?
So I actually was able to do a lot of research on this at my time at the ARC. And something that sticks out to me is, again, if you fail to make time for your wellness, then you'll be forced to make time for your illness. And
Ooh,
that's just a
say that again. Say that again. I love that.
if you fail to make time for your wellness, you'll be forced to make time for your illness.
I love that.
Right. And so to me, that's twofold. Number one, acknowledging that we all have this. We all have this need. Just like we have physical wellness, we also have mental wellness. Everybody has it. But also that proactive approach, which I'll talk more about as like we talk more about positive behavior supports, but being proactive in that self-care sets us up for success. A lot of what I did when I became a MANT system trainer is really study neurobiology. And so there are neurobiological responses that happen in our brain when we are engaging in healthy self-care.
Can you just explain to the listeners what MANT is?
Sure. So the MANT system is a workplace violence sort of behavioral system. So it's very proactive. It's based on healthy relationships and how having healthy relationships leads to less need for sort of reacting to problematic behavior, which again, it's part of, it includes positive behavior supports, it's trauma informed, and it also just gives us more of that neurobiology information that some of us don't get. You're not going to necessarily see this if you put on the TV or anything these days. But what the MANT system really, really impacted me is that there is that brain body connection. That's that neurobiology. So when we're at our baseline, which is what we want, that's our happiest, healthiest baseline, we are able to engage in things like communication. We're able to learn new skills. We're able to maintain healthy relationships. But when we become dysregulated, meaning that we start to escalate, something has triggered us, our body physically starts to react. So our blood pressure goes up, our heartbeat goes up, and the skills that we were able to engage in at baseline are no longer available to us. So our bodies get stronger and stupider at the same time. And so when we engage in that self-care, when we're able to do it proactively and in preventative ways, it helps our baseline stay strong. Our buttons aren't so easy to push. We're able to see mistakes as mistakes. And if something does happen, there's a minor setback, we can bounce back from that faster. We can see it as a bad moment and not a bad day.
I like that. I love that. What would be your top 3 to 5 self-care practices that each of us can use to improve our mental wellness?
So you gave me up to 5. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do 5.
You can give us as many as you want.
Be very clear. This is not a prescription for these, but as a human being who has invested a good deal of time and effort into learning these are the top 5 that
and honestly, if you have more, please, because this is what it's for, is to help people. And anything that you have that's, whatever, I can attach in like the note section too, for like to help people. So yes. All right, go.
All right. So the first one and the most important is to breathe.
Breathe. Just breathe. People, take out your notepad and write it down.
And I always say, smell the flower and blow out the candle. So you're actually training your body how to breathe. So fun fact, when I was 25, I went to a chiropractor for the first time and I was told that I was breathing backwards. I had no idea what he was talking about. So when we inhale, our diaphragm should rise. And when we exhale, it should flatten because we've pushed out all the air. So I wasn't doing that. I would breathe in and pull my chest up, which actually makes your stomach flatten. And then when I would breathe out, my belly would come popping out.
I feel like I do that sometimes.
It is backwards. And a lot of times it is because of how tense or relaxed our body is.
Makes sense.
So what we need to do, especially, and I would say before, during, and after stressful interactions, we can breathe intentionally. So again, remember, we smell the flower and then blow out the candle. And for some of us, you'll find that another tip I have is move. And something I was able to get into is yoga. It's not for everyone, but yoga and meditation really help me personally become intentional about my breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And it is something that I have done on the way to work, at work, on the way home from work, before a doctor's appointment, during, after. So it's just one of those things. Again, you're setting yourself up for success because if you're breathing in those intentional ways, your blood pressure stays decreased and your heart rate stays down and your pulse. So
I took a class at the Arena Club for it used to be the Body Flow, but now they call it Body Balance.
Yeah.
And it was a mixture of Pilates, Tai Chi, and yoga, and I loved it.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of anything because another one of my tips is to move. So move. This is where movement has tons of research. I'm not going to spit it all out, but do the research if you're really unsure. But the impact of exercise on mental wellness is out there. We know that it's scientifically proven that when we move our bodies, our minds benefit from that. But I also want to be intentional when I say move, I mean any movement. Walking, powerlifting, sprinting, marathons, or dancing, stretching, even fine motor skills. So building. I know people who love to puzzle. I know people who love to build Lego sets as adults, Lego sets. Gardening. You have to use your hands and the earth. Writing in our journals. These are all ways that we move that will, again, have a positive effect on our mental health.
And then to go on that, going back with the stress. And I know that a lot of families, because I find it too, it's like, oh my gosh, all right, taking care of this. Then you still have your house chores and dinner and breakfast and lunch and showers and vacuuming, all of that stuff and work. And then the needs of the child. Sometimes we're just so gosh darn tired, we can't do another thing except for we're going to collapse. But I know, because I did it for so long, when I used to exercise daily for 5 years when I was a Beachbody coach. It was the best I ever felt. And then I fell off, and then you get like in that slump. So it is important. And I think that sometimes it's better to get it done in the morning, because then at nighttime, you already have it done. It sets you up for a great positive day. And then you don't have that excuse later of you're too tired, or, oh no, the unexpected comes up and you just can't get to it.
Right. So. And again, it doesn't have to be, we're not talking an hour. I'm talking 15 minutes.
And you know what else? What I got. Oh, here, I'll show everybody. It's a
peddler.
I'm like, all right, this is no excuse then. And this is when we were, still working home, virtually and stuff. And So I got it. I'm like, I have no excuse. I'm sitting on the computer all day. Just like when we were in the office, and then when Kate ended up getting that stand-up, she always had the yoga ball, and then she got the stand-up
Desk. Yeah.
treadmill thing for her
Yeah.
desk. Yeah.
Walking.
So I'm like, all right, it's sitting there. I have to use it now because there's no excuse. I'm sitting. All I gotta do is put it on and just
Right.
move my feet.
I like that. I like that. Okay. What else did I have here? Oh,
Breathe, movement.
breathe, movement, hydrate.
Mm-hmm.
So prior to working at the Arc, I actually worked at places where we had no access to water. And that's not like, oh, there's no water at all. It was just, again, supporting kids with aggressive behaviors. These become weapons. These water bottles become weapons.
Wow.
And so we would just, say like, oh, or I'll go to the water fountain when I get a chance, or, oh, I can run to the bathroom, whenever. But honestly, I didn't know how thirsty I was until I started actually drinking the amount of water my body needed. And so now I feel thirsty a lot more often because I know like how much water I need.
Mm-hmm.
I drink half of my body weight in ounces every day. And when regular water doesn't cut it, I will do a water additive like a Mio or a packet of something else. But hydrating,
Yep.
it's one of the first questions I ask people when they may have had some sort of behavioral episode is when is the last time they had water, or to even
Mm-hmm.
calm down, do you want some cold water?
Right.
And then eating. So eating is another one. And I don't really talk a lot about diet, but know that depending on your body type and what your body needs, food is fuel.
Yeah.
And we have all become hangry
Mm-hmm.
time to time. But when our body gets low on that fuel, just like our car, it starts to, not work so well. And for me personally, I was trying all of the things that I thought I knew. And I was someone who, again, had weight fluctuations when I became, again, an unpaid caregiver because I had always, been a professional caregiver. But when I had my daughter, that unpaid caretaking really, really impacted me. And so I started using a nutritionist,
Mm-hmm.
I guess also called a dietitian.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but most health insurances cover that service now. And because in my mind at first, I thought perception is, I shouldn't need someone's help. I'm a big, like, I don't want to impose. But then I really started to think like, this is someone who gets paid to help people manage their weight and not just, lose weight, but also maintain healthy weight.
Right.
So I ended up seeing a dietitian. That might not be for everyone, but I will say that what I noticed was I had that progress in weight management, and then also learned how to eat to make myself feel good.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean, and again, every wheelhouse is different, but I don't deny myself any of the treats that I want.
Mm-hmm.
It's about learning moderation, and it's about getting to a point where, okay, yes, I can have that.
Mm-hmm.
And how, portion matters and a variety of food matters. And there are foods out there that taste good,
Mm-hmm.
that will also make your body feel good and your brain feel good.
Yeah,
So,
we just did an episode which I want to connect you with her. So she has a business, it's called Chronically Holistic, and she's been working with Faith. And actually I think it's next week it airs, but she was a nurse, and then just like all the medications, they're feeding everybody and stuff, and then she had a lot of issues. She has POTS, she has EDS, she had anxiety, she had all kinds of issues, had to have the iron infusions just like Faith. And so she learned to do all of this stuff, so she became got certified as a nutrition therapy practitioner. Well,
Okay.
Faith has been off Miralax since August. She has been on that her entire life. So she does hair sample tests. So it tells you how much minerals and vitamins. And she tries to help switch up your diet with it first before even putting supplements in there. And it's been great. So, and the other thing that she's getting ready to do, which I really and you have that passion right there along with me that would want to do this. But so next year, right in the street off of one, they have 17 acres. Instead of getting a big house, they're going to build a small house, but they're going to build a retreat with yurts. And she's going to be having like weekend women's retreats and having like acupunctures there, yoga instructors, like everything. And she goes to different wellness places and speaks. And she's actually going to get licensed too for functional to be, I don't know, there's a functional doctor, but for functional medicine. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm thinking, you know how awesome it would be to like get a group of us special moms needs that need it, or like even to do my intent or do some type of fundraiser and make sure these women get to go.
Yes.
Like I totally can see like you being there helping with all of like in that. So yeah,
Get my head, Karen. I
I know.
just over the weekend was thinking, how nice would it be to get some sort of retreat together? And I'm more of a spiritual person,
Mm-hmm.
not so religious. And
Mm-hmm.
so thing where it would be like that. It would
Oh
be
yeah,
the
you would love it. You would love it. Love it, love it, love it. And then also too, another thing which they, and I'll give a shout out to them too, which is Serenity Salt Spa. So I've been a couple of times and they always donate to the Arc NCR's gala every year. So they have, and it's only $35, and you can have up to, I think, 12 women, and it's $35 a person. And you get to, there's a big, huge spa room there. You can fit 12 people in there. They have the 2 massage chairs. Then they have the little ion things that you stick your feet on. They have, and then they give you a bottle of wine. And I'm like, that would be so awesome and relaxing. That would be like another thing to do. So we need to get together at some point. My hair's all sticking up because I was itching my head. But and do, like I could see all those things in the future. So yeah. So okay, I squirreled, but it's all good stuff. So you did your that was 5, right? Or did you have another one?
I think I have one more. I've
Okay.
listened.
Sorry, I have a habit of squirreling in and interrupting. I get so excited.
No, but the last one is just listen. And so I don't mean, again, it's not just music, it's books, ASMR
What's
right
that?
now. It's
What is
where
it?
ASMR, and it stands for something I don't honestly know, but my kids love it. It's like satisfying sounds. So for some people, it's like my daughter, she loves leaves that get crunched. So you don't watch it, you just listen to
Listen
it,
to
like
it.
the sound of water trickling. So like ocean waves
Right.
crashing. So it's all of those sort of things. Autonomous sensory meridian.
Autonomic. I can never say autonomic. Autonomic.
Yeah. It's a term to describe a tingling, static like or goosebump sensation in response to triggering audio stimuli.
That's cool. And also the other thing, thank you for bringing that up for her. The other thing too that Kate had talked about too, and which Faith does, is dry brushing. Have you ever? Yes. So she does the dry
A lot
brushing.
of my friends with sensory processing and sensory needs dry brushing,
Mm-hmm.
especially for people who have that touch aversion to certain fabrics. For Layla, it's denim and anything that has like that sparkle weave to it. I don't even know.
Yes.
Even when I have pictures of her at 3 months old, and she's just in sheer panic. So this is again lifelong for her.
Yeah.
Uh, but yes, the dry brushing. But again, that's a sensory need, and it's some self care that you're teaching Faith
Mm-hmm.
to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. So as far as listening goes, though, I am a firm believer that if I have a good book to listen to, or a good playlist, or a good podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and my body is moving and doing something, then my brain is happy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I bought a condo last year, and I've gotten through some hefty house renovations because I'm able to listen and really have sort of a soundtrack. And I love music, but I have a song that I listen to before I present at work. I have a song I have a specific playlist for Fridays. I have a specific playlist for Mondays.
Oh,
too.
that is so funny. I love it
Yeah.
though.
And honestly, listening. So it could just be listening to nothing too. Like sometimes the silence, it's important to listen to that. And
Yeah.
especially when you're coming from like a chaotic environment, or maybe your kiddo just had a tantrum for 25 minutes, you just might need 5 minutes in a locked bathroom stall to yourself.
Yeah. I just did an interview with a woman who she has no help whatsoever. It's another awesome one you should listen to. She's got a lot that she wants to do too. All these passionate people that I talk to. And she has twin boys that are nonverbal, who are autistic. And she said there's times where she just has to go for 5 minutes into the bathroom, whether it's to cry or just to be still. Yeah, you need that.
For sure.
Absolutely. So in your opinion, what are some of the main roadblocks that prevent people from making better self-care choices? And what would you suggest can be done to overcome those roadblocks?
Okay. So for this one, I have three.
Yep, you
Um,
go for it, girl.
I'm going to say them first. So number one is time. Number two is resources. And number three is mentality. So for time, I had to change the thought process from I don't have time for that to it's not a priority right now. So thinking of my day in minutes or my day in hours, and some of that needs to be sleep. And thankfully, I'm getting on a very good sleep schedule for the first time in my life. But um, having to say out loud that, you know, breathing is not a priority. We know that's not true.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Or making time for my friends, or, making time to one of my favorite self-care things is to go walk around TJ Maxx.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to buy anything. I just want to
Mm-hmm. Yep.
relive something that I used to do when I was younger all the time. And I find TJ Maxx to be relaxing. It smells good. There's lots to see, and the people usually leave you alone. But I think for me, and hopefully for other people, the aspect of time really does take that introspection. So really looking at what, we are doing inside, because sometimes my self-care, I judge it and I say, oh, you're just being lazy. But sometimes I need to doom scroll. Sometimes after a hard day, I come home and I watch Jeopardy and I might doze off on the couch. Sometimes I don't always feel like I'm giving myself enough credit for the hard day that I
Things to
had,
have.
everything that, I've accomplished. Because I didn't get to go to the gym, or I didn't do those things. But it's most important that we need to be honest with ourselves about what we need, and then take that proactive approach. If we want to change something about it. Some people are like, no, that's my routine. I find like my dad is one of those people who his hobbies are work. And that's the mentality he has. I think a lot of it has to do with his generation. But you work all day and then he comes home, he eats, and he watches TV. But at his age, I hope he understands like that's what he does for self-care. He needs to rest his body because he's a very active person. He has a very physical job. He's a carpenter, and he is someone who never really got into like working out. He never really got into like I don't even know, like he gardens, I guess, and things like that. But a lot of times people would judge him for the amount of time that he likes to spend at home. But what I do know about my father at this point and me is that we learn from TV. We watch Nat Geo, we are watching Animal Planet, and those are all
brain stimulating and learning.
brain stimulating and learning. And because we're visual learners and we're seeing things that look good and we're learning visually, that's self-care too. So, but time. So again, just think about what your priorities are. And again, be proactive. Maybe today it's not a priority. Today it was a Monday and it was a really Monday-y Monday for me. So just getting through it is where I wanted to do today. Okay. So resources is another roadblock. And again, it's not always the type of resources that we think. It's not always financial. Right. Sometimes it's that human collateral, that human resource. So I remember again having my daughter and I didn't have a babysitter and her dad was at work. So how was I going to make time for myself? If you don't have that village, right? If your village is not very big, you don't necessarily have someone to hand your child off to. Or if you do, they might, not be free, or they might not have the training that you really need to be around someone, especially if there is medical needs. But let's say, okay, so anyway, so you have a child and there's no one to hand them off to. Okay, so nope. I have friends of mine who want to get up early and they get it out of the way because they know, okay, my kid sleeps till 7 no matter what. Okay, so then they're up at 6 and they're getting their workout in, or they're drinking a cup of coffee in quiet. They're walking the dog, they're paying, whatever they want to do, they do it before they wake up. We also, my friends and I who have those smaller villages, we might be doing it after they go to bed. I am now fortunate enough to be able to afford a gym that has childcare included. So that's a bonus, but not everybody has that. In various stages of life, I was not able to financially do that. And so,
and sometimes people don't financially have the money to get a babysitter.
Right. Absolutely. But I will say, as far as technology goes, there have been, and one of the greatest things I saw through the pandemic is the increase of apps and YouTube channels for self-care. Whether it's a workout or again, audiobooks, listening to stories, listening to ASMR. They are out there. Right now I use Insight Timer. That's how I get to sleep every night.
What's it called?
Insight Timer, INSIGHT. Now, I use the free version, but there is a paid version. And I always look at my health insurance because a lot of health insurances now are covering apps. I think the 1 year we got Happify. Last year, or for 2 years, we had the Peloton app free.
Yeah, and Jesse has that.
Yeah, right now it's Apple Fitness. I have that. But honestly, you can go on YouTube and you can just
Google and things will come up.
Type it in. And again, sometimes that takes effort though. So I'll never forget my mom in the 80s raising 3 kids as a stay-at-home mom with very little money to get by, but she sure did have her Jane Fonda VHS.
Jane Fonda, and oh my gosh, what's the other one? What's his name?
Which one? Richard Simmons?
Yes, Richard Simmons. Hi, kitty.
Want to say hi?
Hi. My cat is 27 pounds.
Oh my God. This is my new one. We just got her this weekend.
Aww, how sweet.
But she's like, what are you doing up there?
Yes, and also get yourself an animal because that helps with self-care and emotion. What is it?
Unconditional love.
Yes.
That's connection. Plus, for me, I always laugh. I need an animal that I can touch.
Touch.
And
Mm-hmm.
I do not want a reptile. I do not want something that swims. I need something to squish. Huh. So yes, actually that's a very good self-care. Um, but yeah, so resources and then mentality. So most of my life, and again, thinking of where I grew up and how I grew up in a very blue collar part of Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania. I grew up in single family. My parents divorced pretty early on. But even, the parents of friends I had who stayed together, there wasn't necessarily a positive light on this. It was very much self-care is selfish.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And oh, can you believe so and so was work? Can you believe she takes 2 hours a night to go do body pump?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, like I play all of this back in
In
my
your
head.
head. Yep.
Yeah, and guess what? She's probably happier than anybody that was sitting there judging her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think some of it has to do with expectations when we become parents. I don't know if it's like those preconceived notions that we have, because I don't know where the idea of dedicating every moment to this creature that I made came from, but I had no idea I was doing that for years.
Mm-hmm.
Every single waking and sometimes sleeping moment, especially when until she was about 4, 5, even though she would sleep through the night, I still would wake up to a baby crying because in my mind I'm like ready to go, fight or
Yeah.
flight. Here we go. I got
Yes. Yes.
um but the idea that people, especially women who take time for themselves are selfish needs to die. Like that notion,
Mm-hmm.
doing what you need to do to survive is no different than that oxygen mask on the airplane.
Yep.
And
I always go and get a massage at least once a month, if not like every 4 to 6 weeks, I go and get a massage. That's one of
and
my big things.
amazing. I'm so proud of you for that because again, if you're caring for others, you
Mm-hmm.
have to care for yourself.
Yep.
Um, and again, it's not just the paid. I think somewhere along the lines, people thought like only caregivers are the ones that got paid.
Mm-hmm.
Women, especially women,
Mm-hmm.
um, if not, parents in general, there is a hefty amount of caregiving that goes on that is unpaid. Um, and so it looked like I look back at sort of what I was doing before the pandemic, and I look at my unpaid positions.
Mm-hmm.
I was a mom, I was a wife, a daughter, a sister, a friend, a neighbor, a coworker, and then on top of that, I had a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of that unpaid caregiving wasn't accounted for. And so it took me time when I first, I knew I wanted to make a change, but it took me time.
Time. Yeah.
Um, I want to say probably to get into a good routine with things or even just that mindset, that positive mindset, it probably took me a good 6 months.
Yeah.
Um, and so again, I started with an intention and it just took a while to get there. It's not going to happen overnight,
Overnight. Yeah.
but
Absolutely.
small little bits will help.
In one sentence, what would you say to someone who doesn't prioritize their mental well-being?
Mm. Are you there? Okay.
Yeah.
I would say, what are you doing when you feel your best? I think it's more of a question than
Mm-hmm.
a sentence, but what are you
But you
doing?
flipped it in a positive way. So,
Yes, because maybe, and for some of us, we might be doing, like I said, we might be engaging in self-care, but just judging ourselves very harshly for it.
mm-hmm.
Um, or thinking of that first, that let's do some introspection. What am I doing? Who am I with when I feel my best?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's important too. But what does my best look like? And then if they're living it, maybe they're doing a little more. self-care than they think, or they might be able to identify,
Mm-hmm.
ways that they can start to prioritize it.
I know I used to feel guilty in the beginning when I used to go get massages, like, oh, it must be nice, go get a massage. I'm like, hey, you want to trade places? Because I've got to transfer her, shower her, get her like, hello, I'll trade places.
Right.
No, I mean, no, I would trade places, so you can get it, but I wouldn't trade places because I wouldn't give my daughter up for anything. But you know what I'm saying.
I do.
So what are some self-reflection questions that we should be asking ourselves? Which, I mean, you kind of touched on some of them.
Yeah, I think the biggest one is, what are your priorities right now?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can't do all of the things, but maybe you can do one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe what you can do today looks different than tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
But what are your priorities? What resources do you know of, and why haven't you used them yet?
Mm.
So maybe there are people out there who are listening to this and going, "Oh, the ARC NCR, like, what's that about?
Mm-hmm.
Why haven't I reached out to them?" Fun fact, selfish slash not selfish plug for the family supports over at the ARC is that your kids don't have to have disabilities
Yes.
to get family support
Yes.
services. And so
And it
these
doesn't
are,
even have to be kids. So if you have like an
yeah,
elder parent that you're taking care of, it's
yeah,
over that arc of a lifetime with or without a disability. Yeah.
they're just there for families in general.
Yep. Which is huge. Huge.
Yeah.
Huge, huge, huge. And they actually started helping with people too, because many people that might not know that I am now an insurance broker. So I help people with their Medicare, whether it's a Medicare supplement, whether it's prescription drug plans, whether it's Medicare Advantage plans, dental, vision, all of that stuff. And then I have some of my families, or the parents that where the husband or wife goes on Medicare, but then they have no insurance. So then I was like, oh, well, let's add on the ACA under 65 too. I'm like, and then I ended up becoming a support broker now for the developmental disability self-direction program. What else? And meanwhile, and I just want to put a plug in for you and for Steve. I talked to Steve today. He messaged me because every year they put together their different parent workshops or whatever, if you will, their trainings that they have to do monthly. So he was going ahead for next year, and he was wanting to find somebody that fostered or whatever. And so I FaceTimed him. I'm like, oh, I missed the weekly, what is it? And I'm like, not our team meetings, my weekly supervisions. And so it was so funny. So of course I'm like rattling off stuff. I'm like, okay, and how much are you charging me for my therapy session? I'm like, and now I'm on the Zoom with you. I'm like, okay, I'm getting another good session tonight.
Right.
I love it. I really feel like it's a lot of work, but to me, it it is kind of self-care, because it makes you feel like you're not alone, and then you get the resources, and you just, I think. Okay, so can you share your favorite life lesson quote? Why does this quote resonate with you so much? And this kind of ties into that last thing of, what is your word?
Mhm.
And why?
Okay. So my favorite at the moment, and I'm a big word person, but at the moment, it kind of goes hand in hand with not just self-care, but just positive behavior support in general. So first it's an intention, then a behavior, then a habit, then a practice, then second nature, and then simply who you are. And I like that quote because it takes 21 days to develop a habit, but it only takes as little as 3 minutes a day. And I know, and the research shows that that could be a good habit or a bad habit. So for me, knowing that my intention is to lead a positive life, not just for myself, but for everybody that I care for, it helps me guide my interactions, my intentions, and it also makes me acknowledge and identify what I'm giving energy to, because what you're giving energy to is what will develop. And so, yes, 21 days to develop a habit, but you really do need that intention, whether it's, to be a more positive person, or whatever it is. And then my word,
Mm-hmm.
My word is actually pause. And I often need to remember that a 10-second pause can really change a situation. If I'm able to breathe for 10 seconds before I respond,
What is it?
pause.
No, you breathe.
Oh,
What is it? Candle and blow. No, what is it?
Flower.
Smell a flower.
Yes.
Breathe the candle. Okay.
But yeah, a 10-second pause. That's all you need, because that's what really changes a reaction into a response. So I don't want to go through life just being reactive to everybody or everything or every challenge that's coming my way. I want to respond in meaningful ways. And I know for myself that that means I have to pause. So my word is pause.
I love that. And now I'm gonna keep that in my head. So I want to thank you so much for taking the time out and for being on the show, because you have so much to offer, and I'm just grateful for you. So everybody, guess what? You get to hear Lauren again next episode. So stay tuned as we go more into the positive behavior supports, which is another huge topic. So with that being said, we'll see you soon. Peace out. Thank you for joining us as we spread awareness through our personal stories and the many resources shared. You can help us by joining our village simply by sharing our show with the masses. You can also become a supporter of the show by clicking on the link in the show notes. Your funds will allow us to keep sharing these valuable, heartfelt stories and resources. Be sure to subscribe to our Guilbault Girls podcast and YouTube show, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Guilbault Girls.